welcome to Public Sector Voices with Emily Rodgers. On today's show, we're joined by Sacha Lord, Nighttime Economy Advisor for Greater Manchester and Mayor Andy Burnham. Sacha has played a huge role in continuing Greater Manchester's rich music heritage, with events like Warehouse Project and Park Life. Since the coronavirus outbreak sent the world spinning, Sacha has been supporting the sector across the region, raising over £250,000 and counting, entertaining his fans and giving hope to local business. So, Sacha, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. It's weird times, but I'm keeping extremely busy.
Good. Well, the people in our office are really excited about you and everything that you do. But for anybody listening who doesn't know, can you just tell us a little bit about your journey to getting to where you are now?
Yeah, so I am Mancunian born and bred, born in Wythenshawe Hospital, brought up in Altrincham, and I kind of didn't do very well at school because what happened was when I was 17, it collided with what we call the Manchester period with, Hacienda, Stone Roses, New Order. And I found that far more exciting than geography, English lit and French. So in fact, I liked art. That was the only thing. So I flunked out of school and, I had to follow my passion. And the first party I put on was at Hacienda. 4th of July 1994, and 26 years later, I'm still doing it. And to begin with, it was just to pay bills. It wasn't to create a career or anything. But now myself and my business partners, we're proud to say we've got Park Life, which is the biggest metropolitan festival in the UK, and we've got Warehouse Project, which is 10,000 people every Friday and Saturday from September to New Year's Day. We saw 250,000 people come through the doors last season. And then obviously my other cap, I'm the Nighttime Economy Advisor for our Mayor, Andy Burnham, which is, I'm really, really finding very, very exciting.
That was one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, because for me, going from just putting on great events and great nights to going to with being within the Combined Authority, how did that jump come about?
So it came about because over the years, I was becoming slightly frustrated with the people that I call suits, who don't really know much about the hospitality industry, and they live in this Westminster bubble. So, the people look at sometimes the nighttime economy as a bit of a nuisance. They think about antisocial behaviour and things like that, and not really that particularly important. And I get it, because when we go out on a night out, we go out with our friends, whether it's to a restaurant or a club or a bar, and that's the time when we let our hair down. It's a luxury. It is a bit of fun, but actually take away from that, it's the 5th biggest industry in the whole of the UK. And in Greater Manchester alone, we employ north of 415,000 people. So wow. When we got the news that we were going to have devolved powers up here, I went to a few of the hustings and was asking whether they would support, whether the candidates would support the idea of like a commission or a board that would advise. And fortunately for all of us, Andy Burnham won. And we had a few conversations about it. But I think actually what's kind of sealed it a little bit was we had the very awful attack on our city, 22nd of May 2017. And I think we saw the whole city region come together at that point, as we are now, and it didn't matter whether you were unemployed, whether you were a lawyer, whether you were a builder, whether you were a postman, we all came together. Even United and City fans came together in solidarity, which is rare. And there's the big One Love concert that took place, and that was very much an international thing with huge artists like Justin Bieber and Miley Cyrus, and it was great to see Liam appear. But I was a week after that with Park Life, and I wanted to do something that was more localised, a tribute to the first attenders who attended on the night, the police, the paramedics, the doctors, the nurses, the taxi drivers, everybody. And Andy did a tribute at that event, and that's when the conversation started.
I'm biased as well, but I do feel like that's something that we do particularly well when in times of crisis, is coming together and showing our best selves, really.
We do. We're seeing it now. Obviously I'm going to talk about United We Stream, but, there's so much good that's coming out of this city at the moment. And I can give you a perfect couple of examples about this. So when this started, I was contacted by Greater Manchester Police, who were panicking, so were running out of hand sanitizer. So
Mm-hmm.
I put a call out on my socials on Twitter, and actually Didsbury Gin got in contact with me and said, well, look, we're producing alcohol. Alcohol is the basis of hand sanitizer, so we will now start producing it for Greater Manchester Police. That's one amazing story, and it solved that problem. Another one is we have a restaurant called The Creameries in Chorlton, and Mary Ellen, who owned it, she had to close, obviously. So her and somebody else called Corinne Bell contacted loads of restaurants and said, look, you're closing, your stock's going out of date, give us your stock. If you've got any chefs or staff that are furloughed and want to volunteer, come on board. And they're now producing on average 7,000 meals a week that are delivered to the most vulnerable people across our city region completely free of charge. So I think anybody listening to this and listening to those two stories will hear and understand the passion that we have across Greater Manchester.
Yeah, there's a real sense of everybody in it together, which is what you're doing with your events, which we will come to a bit later on because I'm super excited about them. But I mean, your role with the Combined Authority, it's not just about making sure that people, have a great night, but you've got to deal with issues like safety and transport, cultural diversity. How do you approach these types of things?
So no, completely. And just so you know, it's not because my background, people automatically associate it with nighttime industry as in hospitality, but it's not. So we include nighttime economies, everything that happens between 6 p.m. in the evening and 6 a.m. in the morning. So hospitality leisure, that does make a third of it, but actually the NHS is 32%. And the balance is, if you imagine shift pattern workers at Trafford Park. So I was very, very keen to begin with in setting out a blueprint. It was a 12-month vision. And you're right, it was to do with things like connectivity, safety, inclusivity. And just as we entered this lockdown period, the blueprint had run out, it had finished, and we'd completed everything. And, there's some highlights that stood out on there, like safety havens in Wigan. Safety havens going to happen in Bolton when we're allowed to go back out again. We ran a transport survey asking people what they wanted. 11,000 people responded, one of the biggest responses of the Combined Authority. And luckily for us, Metrolink and Andy Burnham agreed that we could run the Metrolink through December for an extra hour in the evenings, which was superb, and not just help people on a night out, but if you imagine that the staff who finish in restaurants at maybe midnight, they could get home on a much more viable basis than having to pay for a taxi. So it was a big win-win for everybody. There was no antisocial behaviour that happened on it, which some people questioned. And now the idea is we're going to create a 4-year vision, another blueprint. And number one is obviously going to be recovery. And especially hospitality. We were one of the first to close, and we are going to be one of the last ones to open. So it's how do we do that across Greater Manchester? And we have had phenomenal support from the leaders, from Andy Burnham. It's that they've all acknowledged how important hospitality is. And that's something that our city region has always done, actually. They've taken a much wider view than other city regions do. And I'll use Parklife as an example. So when we're on that one weekend, forget what happens within the perimeter of the festival, but £13 million come into the city centre for that weekend. And that's, if you think about hotel rooms, taxis, transport, new outfits, restaurants. And the council have always done a really good job of understanding the importance of tourism and hospitality and bringing that money in. And it will be losing millions at the moment, but I know it will recover. So that's what we do differently to the rest of the country.
Yeah, well, that's why I think, and I wrote this when I was writing the show notes for this show, to have somebody like you kind of leading this is important because you do know what a great impact it has on the region. So you know that focusing on the nighttime and the hospitality industry is going to have a huge impact on the bounce back of the region.
It is, but you know something? So I think when we are allowed to reopen in whatever way that looks like, I think there's going to be two sets of people. I think you're going to have your 18 to 25-year-olds who are going to shoot out of the back door quicker than Usain Bolt and go to the nearest bar or club. They're not going to care. They're straight out. And then you've got the maybe middle-aged like myself who, I might think twice about re-entering straight away. I think there'll be a bit of confidence that needs to come back. And I think that will take a few weeks. I don't think for 1 minute we're talking about months because I think people are eager. And that's what we do well in the city region. They call us a 24-hour party people, don't they?
Yeah.
And I know people are desperate to get out there and go to their favorite restaurants or their favorite bars. So I have absolute confidence that we're going to bounce back. We're very resilient. And I would add to that as well that I actually think the independent bars and restaurants and clubs are going to be respected even more because people have such an understanding of how hard times are for them at the moment.
Yeah, and there's kind of a kudos at the moment, isn't there, for supporting local businesses and independent bars and restaurants. So that's a really good thing.
Yeah, totally. And we're seeing that on a daily basis. We are printing some T-shirts, some merchandise at the moment for United We Stream, and been approached by so many companies, but we're absolutely adamant that it has to be done in Manchester. So that's the good thing. We are supporting local, and I think coming out of this, we'll carry on and continue doing that.
Yeah, and we have so many good options and good choices in Manchester for things like food and drink and entertainment. So we're spoiled, really.
Yeah, so there's an article coming out tomorrow, actually. I don't know if you've seen it, but Manchester United signed a player in 2014 called Angel Di Maria, 60 million, and he was an absolute useless flop and was sold in the following season for 44 million. But his wife came out yesterday and publicly had a go at Manchester about our culture and about the women in Manchester. So I've written a really nice response that comes out tomorrow, and I've basically just given her 2 barrels. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that being published. It's no holds barred. She's got.
Yeah, I'd like to read that.
Yeah, no, I've properly gone in on her. And one of the things she was talking about, in Manchester, she couldn't go out on the streets without seeing women that were dolled up the whole time. And I have suggested that perhaps if she escaped from the leafy suburbs of Alderley Edge, she would have seen the proper Manchester. I've not held back on it, and I'm 100% confident I'm going to get told off tomorrow, but it's done.
She would have loved my area for the past 6 weeks. There's absolutely nobody dolled up. Everybody's in the pajamas.
Well, I was delighted when I was told that this was just recording and not having the camera on, so I'm still in my T-shirt and short.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit then about United We Stream and the kind of work that you're doing to galvanise people who are probably sat at home really missing the events that they would normally go to.
Yeah, so to begin with, at the very outset, we didn't know if anybody would watch, never mind donate. And in the last 5 weeks, we've had over 9 million viewers, and we've raised over £250,000, over 260,000 to be precise. And it came about because when we went into lockdown, the government did some quite good things, actually, in terms of furloughing, in terms of business rate relief, VAT being pushed back. And they were good, but it didn't go far enough. And, I was hearing horror stories of people who myself personally have been working with. And I'll give you one example. So ever since 2006, I've used the same sound engineer. And I rate him as one of the best in the country. And the only times I can't use him is when Massive Attack or when the Prodigy used to tour, they insisted that they used him. He was that good. And he's now in shelves in Tesco, which there's nothing wrong with that. But he went from a very, very good wage with a lot of outgoings to, really scraping around now. And I know so many people who the government have let fall between the cracks. Many freelancers who aren't working the festivals, and they're now desperately trying to cope with paying the mortgages, and they've got kids and they're trying to survive on universal credit. So I was like, well, what can we do? And I saw an initiative that was happening in Berlin, and I asked my colleagues over in Berlin, can we do something similar in Greater Manchester? Would you mind us? And they said, yeah, that's great. So the first weekend, it's called United We Stream, and basically we're putting a party on every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and some Thursdays as well. And the first weekend, we streamed it. We thought there'd be some technical glitches, so it was almost like a soft launch. And we're saying to people, look, it's completely free of charge to watch. We know times are hard, but if you can donate £1, £2, £3, whatever, please donate and help people across our city region. And week 2, I think everything aligned at once. It was a bank holiday. The weather was absolutely incredible. We were on the tail end of probably the worst week of news, where we were being told we're about to peak. All these hospitals were struggling. So we had the Hacienda party that was 12 hours. And I think everyone just thought, you know what? This is the Hacienda. This is Manchester. turn off the news, let's sit in the garden, let's have a couple of beers. And 1.5 million people tried to tune in. And in what I can only say was true Hacienda style, we crashed the website and it went down for 15 minutes, and we had to buy more server space, and then you couldn't donate for 2 hours. And then it was just an incredible party. It really was fantastic. And we're doing the same again this weekend, actually. But I think that sort of launched it. So yeah, we're here now with over 9 million viewers. Incredible. It's not only is it raising money, not only is it entertaining, but it's one of the biggest platforms in Greater Manchester that now is reiterating the message, stay home, because obviously that is the only way we can get through this at the moment, by staying home.
I mean, I definitely shouldn't say this as a journalist, but sometimes in times like this, you do need to just turn off the news and kind of do what makes you happy. And I know, like, one thing that we've seen is so many people being creative in a time where you can't go out. They're turning to other kind of ways to entertain themselves, entertain each other. And I find it really, really good.
Well, I mean, I shouldn't say this either, because I think I'm supposed to be looked upon now as a serious person, which, let's be honest, I will never be. But, I have had a few hangovers over the last 5 weeks. There's been some great parties. And I think the most annoying thing, the only person that actually has not benefited from this, was when I cancelled Park Life. Demi, my fiance, thought, well, this is great because I've got him for a few weeks. And then 2 days later came up with the idea of United We Stream, and she's lost me again.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Well, I did see that your dog got a birthday party the other week, so that's nice.
He did, yeah. Pickle, he was 2. We had a little party for him. I mean, yeah, we're having fun. Luckily, the weather's okay, so we can sit out and enjoy it. But she's bearing with me. Just.
Oh. So, talking about recovery then, moving forward, what does Greater Manchester need then to bounce back? How can people help? How can businesses help? And basically, how can Manchester's nightlife help this and affect this?
So, so I think, firstly, before we look at how we can help each other, we're seeing quite a lot of leaks this week about the new 5-step process, which I never find leaks actually very helpful, because people are knee-jerk reacting. Speculating. It doesn't help. It doesn't help when you have people like Wetherspoons coming out and saying we're going to open in June. I mean, what a ridiculous thing to say. And so I think we have to listen to what the announcement's going to be on Sunday. I am hearing a 5-step plan. I've seen what's come out in Ireland, which isn't very helpful at all. But I think one thing that is most definite is hospitality will be one of the last ones to open. I think we are going to see restaurants open first, but working on a reduced capacity. Obviously, it's easier to social distance tables than it is just opening a bar where everyone stands at the bar and orders drinks.
Yeah.
So, I would ask that the government, that they carry on working with the hospitality industry, that we were the first to shut down, as I said, and we'll be the last to open. So all these measures they put in place, they should continue to support the nighttime economy. Even furloughing, if you can operate at 50%, then we should be able to furlough at 50%. There are several lobbying groups at the moment, which I am a part of. And Greater Manchester is lobbying hard. I saw only this morning that Andy Burnham is also lobbying hard, and he particularly mentioned the hospitality industry, which is fantastic to hear, because we are one of the only city regions that are acknowledging it. So, when we open, we all just have to stick together, and restaurants should buy locally of local suppliers, and bars, when they open, again, use local suppliers, because there's such a domino reaction here. You think about the bars and you think about the restaurants, but hey, what about the people that sell the food to them and the people that supply the drinks to them? But I try to imagine what the first warehouse project party is going to be, or the next party that to put on. And, can you imagine when you're allowed to go and meet your friends for the first time who you haven't seen for many, many weeks, maybe months? And
there's going to be tears.
It will be such an emotional party to go to. We will respect each other so much more, because I do actually think, going into this, my opinion was this country was quite bitter and it's quite divided. And I think things like Brexit didn't help. But I think we're going to re-trigger at this point now and respect each other. And I don't know if you've noticed, but when you go on your daily walk or a dog walk or a run, people are acknowledging you and smiling. And, it's kind of nice to see. That's not happened certainly for many, many years.
It's obvious how starved I am of human contact. An old man said good morning to me at a bus stop the other day, and I had a tear in my eye.
Yeah, it's weird, but if that old man would have said good morning to you 7 or 8 weeks ago, you'd have thought, well, he's a bit weird. But no, it's lovely to see, isn't it? It's nice.
Yeah, and this is without even mentioning the other benefits of things like pollution levels and no congestion and like quieter roads. I mean, there are some things that I hope will be brought forward when we do recover from this.
No, I agree that there are some really good councillors in the city centre, actually. Well, all over Greater Manchester, but in the city centre, I can think of the councillors in the Piccadilly ward, and they've been banging on for quite a while about some of the streets in the northern quarter being pedestrianised. And I've had to go into town to do a few interviews, and it was really nice to be able to walk down the street. And you could almost, when you were breathing, feel the difference in the air. And I don't know if that was just me in my head thinking that, but I could definitely tell a difference, and it was good to see. And I know some of the work that Chris Boardman's been doing with the Combined Authority regarding more cycling, I think that's going to be reiterated now coming out of this.
Yeah, we covered that this morning on the website about the £5 million transport plan with the pop-up infrastructure to try and get people safely able to walk and cycle across Greater Manchester, which I think is great.
It is. I think it's called it the B Network, hasn't it? It's fantastic. It's a way. It's certainly a way forward.
Definitely. So, what can Greater Manchester then to finalise the points that we've made? What can Greater Manchester look forward to for, let's say, the next 5 years?
Wow, that's a big question. So, the next 5 years. I mean, most certainly, it's going to take. If I had to completely guess, I think by January, we will be operating as normal with confidence back. That's my guess. And it is a complete guess. Please don't hold me to that. But I'm part of a WhatsApp group of other night advisors across the world. I think it's about 38, 39. So it's really interesting to see what other countries are doing. And we're all coming up with that kind of idea. That's our thinking. And obviously, it completely comes down to the vaccine. That's going to help. But that's where my head's at. I think it's rebuild. Sadly, we are going to see many establishments not reopen during this period. That's for definite. And I am a positive person, but sadly, that is going to happen. But the great thing is, we have so many creatives across our City region, so many good entrepreneurs that if they don't reopen, they will reopen with another name, another concept. I think we're going to see a big bounce of independence, actually. I think the days of the landlords extracting, significant rents out of people are pretty much finished. I think they're going to have to play a big role in this. And I think we're going to see, and I think this is good because I don't like seeing what I call American streets where it's just chain after chain after chain. You look at Altrincham as an amazing example of this. Altrincham Market inspired so many good food and drinks offerings, and now it has a thriving nighttime economy, whereas 5 years ago it was one of the worst boarded up streets in the whole of the UK. So if we look at that as an example of what we can do to build back better, which I know is the hashtag that the Combined Authority and Andy Burnham are using, we can build back better, and we will build back better. And in 5 years' time, we will be stronger. And, I'm at the age where I can remember the original IRA bomb that happened outside Marks and Spencer's in Shambles Square, and it decimated the city centre. Luckily, nobody died. I think a few were injured. But actually, what came out of that, and certainly the architect for it, not in a literal way, but Sir Howard Bernstein, you have to take your hat off, because what came back was certainly much, much better. And whether you like it or not, the brand names, they would not have looked at Manchester before we came back.
Yeah.
I mean, a much, much better landscape and a much, much better plan. So we came back much bigger out of that. We came back stronger, and we will do out of this. That is one thing I am absolutely confident about. And I think if anybody is listening from the hospitality industry, and they do feel slightly depressed at the moment, then I would say to them, just look at that, because that's an example of what we do in Manchester.
Definitely, and we do it so well as well.
We do. There's this saying that everybody uses, and I refuse to use it because it's just rolled out time and time again. And it's a saying that Anthony Wilson said. He said, in Manchester, we do things differently. And, so many people say it now, so that's why I don't like to say it. But actually, it's true. It is true. Yeah. We do things differently. And as a Manc, I'm really proud about that.
Yeah, well, I know myself, I'm going to be tuning in this weekend and donating on United We Stream. And I hope everybody who's listening will get involved with it too, because it really is so important. I mean, you look at Altrincham Market as an example and how an area can be kind of revitalised through things like food and drink industry. So, yeah, I want to thank you for that. Just before we finish, just let everybody know, what is the thing that you're most looking forward to when things do go back to normal?
Going to see United play at Old Trafford.
When do you think that'll be?
I have just seen something, but this is me now being a hypocrite, because I said I don't like to talk. All these leaked things don't help, but I have seen something that said end of October. If coronavirus is low, we could possibly see audiences back in stadiums in some format.
So you're clinging to that then?
Don't hold me to that, because I might look stupid, but that's what I'm hoping. I mean, and again, I walk into that ground so many times and I take things for granted. I walk past stewards and I won't think anything of it, but I think we'll all respect each other. And when we sit down and, sometimes you go to these matches and there is a bit of rivalry between the two, obviously teams, but spectators as well. I think we're going to see less of that, certainly over the first few weeks. I think, we're going to see a lot of harmony and love in the stadiums.
Definitely, and a massive change in who we all consider to be the most important workers in the country as well, which I think is super important.
Yeah, I mean, obviously everybody's talking about the frontline services, the NHS, and undoubtedly when we come out of this, we know they're underpaid. That needs looking at. But then there's unsung heroes that the next time I'm stuck behind a bin and a bin lorry and I'm late for work and I'm cursing them, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to sit there and, crack on. Just do what you're doing. You're doing an amazing job.
The postman is the biggest difference for me. I would normally just, I'd give him a smile, obviously, but now I'm like, oh, it's the postman. Thank you so much.
Exactly. When I go to the supermarket and the cashiers are sat there behind the perspex and they are allowing us to eat and drink. And you're just thinking, wow, what you're doing is just incredible. You're serving so many people on a daily basis, allowing us to live our lives. And you're sat there putting yourselves at risk. And these people are on minimum, if not living wage. That needs to be looked at, needs to be addressed. And, I hope that when we come out of this, we can have a massive party that's a free party for all those unsung heroes in the NHS and frontline services.
Yeah, that would be a really special night. And you and all your team who've been doing United We Stream will be included in that. So thank you so much for coming on. I hope everybody listening not only enjoyed the podcast, but are going to tune in this weekend to United We Stream, donate and do what you can to save the businesses and the industry of Greater Manchester. Thank you so much, Sacha.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed Public Sector Voices this week. Next week, we have Chris Murray, Director of Core Cities UK. Don't forget to tune in. Bye.